Hilary Price is an international speaker, author, and Bible teacher. I always look forward to her Mother's Day message from the People's Church in Toronto, where her husband Charles is senior pastor. Living Truth is their weekly broadcast. It's bringing solid Bible teaching to people all over the world. This mother of three has lovely ministry involvements, and well, I've needed to catch up, so I'm sure you do too. Hilary, thank you so much. Aren't you glad they gave us our own spot?
Yes.
I didn't know you have an empty nest.
We do. We have had for 4 years now.
Oh,
Yeah.
you see?
My son, the last child, he left 4 years ago to go to Capernwray, actually. Yeah.
And he's a pilot.
He is. He's now in Alberta in Fort McMurray.
Matthew. And two beautiful daughters. Take a look at this picture. It was Hannah's wedding.
It was.
And when was this?
This was last year. So they've been married just over a year now. Yeah.
Beautiful. I just want to show another picture because the girls have to. Beautiful. This is the one I want to show you. Yeah. Oh, gorgeous bride. And the groom is?
Yes, that's Farzam. He's a lovely young man. He's an architect. And they live in Toronto.
And so does Laura.
Yes, Laura lives in Toronto. She's a nurse. She's the middle one. Yeah.
I was just saying, it's so rewarding when your children have landed in the place God has for them.
Yeah, we're very thankful. We're just thankful God is faithful. And yeah, he patches up all the bits we missed and
That's such
pulls
a good
them
word.
through.
Take heart, mums especially, dads too.
Yeah.
And these children were all born at Capernwray.
They were. We came to Canada 11 years ago. They were 17, 15 and 10.
Now, there were no children in the day when I was there. You
No,
were
there
just
weren't,
newlyweds.
Moira. And you had no children in those days?
Oh, no, I was single. Absolutely. 81, 82. Was that a wonderful place to raise children?
Yes.
I promised I wouldn't mention the sheep, but, you know, they were just outside your door. Just
Yes.
a pastoral setting.
Well, Capernwray Hall's a conference centre and Bible school, and it's a beautiful old castle in 120 acres of land. So just physically, it was a lovely place because they could explore and roam and feel safe and have adventures and climb trees and go on the pond. And but also the community was a very loving community, and they grew up. We had students in our home all the time from all over the world. So they grew up with a lot of inspiration and a lot of great role models and people like you coming and sitting in our home, and just the fun of watching real people work out a real relationship with God, you know, from the age of 18 up to, well, some people come as grandparents, but yeah, just a wonderful place to grow up for them.
Actually, there was a woman in my class who had sent all 6 of her daughters, always wanted to come. And then she came.
Yeah.
The mum,
Yeah.
as a student.
Yeah. My friend's going actually in 3 weeks, and she and her husband, they're in their 50s, and they said, we're done with just being on this treadmill. They've got 4 kids. They've all just moved out, and so they're going.
A
She's
very dynamic
excited.
place. All over the world, but especially love Capernwray Hall.
Yeah.
That was also a time where you were home alone a lot.
I was.
Charles was already hot stuff, traveling all over, preaching, teaching.
I'm not sure it was hot stuff, but
Well,
yeah, it was.
we can say that.
And, was traveling.
He
yes.
was traveling and teaching. Okay, you settle down over there, you guys. And some of that was difficult. You actually had a season of depression there, Hilary.
I did. I had struggles. I mean, I had community up to a point, but and I also had my mum down the road and my dad, which was wonderful. But
in
I
Overkellet?
Well, close. That's where I was born, but they lived close by. But yeah, I had some real struggles, some very dark places I went into, and I went through a time when I began to realise there was no other word for it than I had kind of wandered into a wilderness, and it's very lonely in the wilderness. And somebody said that you know, beneath your feet in the wilderness are treasures, and there are. You look in a wilderness, you think there's nothing, there's no life, there's nothing, but there's actually oil. There's beautiful things under the surface of a wilderness, but you don't know that the treasure's beneath your feet when you've not the energy to look, and you're paralysed by the place you find yourself in. And in that time, I I remember saying to Charles, I don't know what to do, and he was so disconnected because he was distant, and he just said, do what you know to do, which was basically to just keep turning up in the quiet place with God and opening the scriptures, although they were not alive to me. And then one day, just in that quiet place, I read a scripture, and it said, God said to me, there's a highway in the desert. And it transformed my experience, because I thought the highway was at the end of the desert. I thought if I can just crawl through this desert, I'll get back on track. And Jesus basically said there's a highway in the desert. It's right in the desert, and I'm the highway.
Jesus is the highway.
Yeah, and suddenly that was the beginning of my way out, because I realized I'm not here alone, and nobody can rescue you from the desert, not your husband, not anybody. And I sometimes say to people, if you have a friend in the desert, don't go running in to rescue them, because God has allowed them to be in that situation, to learn truths that they would never otherwise learn. And if you go in there as the big hero, you're actually going to shortchange that treasure, that relationship. So, yeah, it wasn't an easy time at all. But we've both learned through it, and I recognize it if it's coming again.
And you're able to encourage so many women.
Yeah.
Your first book addresses this, and it's meant so much. So many struggling with this. You say, I go to the Word whether I feel like it or not.
Yeah.
That's something that has just been a life principle for you. And for 9 years, you were meeting with at least 200 women.
We were.
Every week.
Yeah, at the church.
I didn't know that the Haven is no longer.
No, we drew it to a close a year ago, and I felt it was time for the women as well as for me, and I felt I had nurtured them and encouraged them and led them, and I had really focused on the leadership team, and I sensed it was time to cut the tree down, which was me, who was sheltering the women, and get out of the sunlight and allow the sunlight on them for them to grow up themselves. And it's happened. The team themselves have all stepped up, have grown up, and one of them is stepping into women's ministry now. So it was definitely the right thing. It was hard. It was very hard. It was hard for the women, and it was hard for me.
Look forward to that.
Yeah.
But God is doing new things. He's certainly enlarged your territory.
Yeah. Yes.
Because we see you more and more sharing the ministry as you travel to third world countries with Charles, and are sharing the teaching. It's such a fit for you. That honors degree in English from Sterling University.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I realized.
William Wallace's town.
I know. That's right. The Wallace Monument. I mean, you don't know. I wasn't brought up in a Christian home. I wasn't focused on God. I didn't know God was everything He was doing in my life. He's now actually using. It was all a training. I mean, as an English major, I gathered material week after week after week. I pulled it all together and I delivered it in an essay. And so I was being trained to read, to study, to gather material and to present it now in Timothy. Nothing wasted. Nothing is wasted. The pain, the dark, the study, all the stuff, He just scoops it all up. Yeah, and He redeems it.
Well, you invited me long ago to come and visit something else that you lend your gifts to. It's interesting because you can teach with such depth, and yet you can break it small I get emotional talking about it, for a very special group of people.
Yeah.
Tell us about the friendship class.
Yeah, the friendship class is really my community at the church, and I became a part of it probably because they reached out to me. Danny Rasiopo, whose mum runs it, he has Down syndrome, and when we first came to Toronto, Danny was the person who just cut through all, oh, you're the pastor's wife business. He just that's irrelevant, and so he just related to me and he welcomed me and he gave me the sense of belonging that I needed coming to a foreign country and into a massive church. He was the one who came up, put his arm around me, gave me a kiss, tweaked my nose, and just actually loved me, really welcomed me. And so one day there was a little ad in the church bulletin saying they needed help, and I just thought, I'll just wander around, and I've never left, so I love it. I love the people. I miss the people. In a summer break like this, I can't wait to get back into that community.
So it's off for the summer.
It is.
It's held during the second service.
It's held from 11 till 12, actually. It's kind of in the middle, which helps them come in their vehicles and get out without competing with all the traffic. And Yeah.
I know you have to be there for the first service because Charles depends on your critique
Yes.
before he gives the second. I know he comments on that frequently. Hilary said. Now, the friendship class is for mentally challenged adults 15 and up.
Yes, it
Friendship
is.
Ministries has 800 groups encompassing 40 denominations in over 16 countries.
Yeah.
If you want to explore that. But I cried through the whole hour because they just blessed me so much. There was one man who stood at the front helping to lead the music, and he would not sit down. He wasn't being a problem, but he wouldn't sit down until his favorite song, chorus, was sung. Soon and very soon, we are going to see the King.
Right.
And they all contributed their verse.
Do.
No more medications there. We are going to see the King.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I was just blubbering.
Yeah.
And there was a dear woman at 25 years, very, I don't know what she is struggling with, but completely incapacitated in a wheelchair.
She's physically, she is.
And she was so eager to share the testimony of
Yeah.
how her trachea came out,
Yeah.
and she nearly died, but Jesus rescued her. That was one of the sweetest hours. You find sweet spots, Hilary, don't you?
Very much so. But it's, I mean, you said at the beginning of this little section about me going to share my gifts, but it isn't actually about that because I'm totally the recipient in this situation. And I think it's very challenging too because, I mean, we're tucked away at the back of the church and we have brought the whole class into the church because we can't bring the church into the class, but there's so many churches who just don't realise the need to open their doors and their hearts and actually the church and change the building to welcome people with disability.
Look at this, we'll have to give you a quick peek at one of your friends.
Yeah,
Who's
that's
this?
Danny.
Danny.
I have that, that's up in my kitchen and it's, what does it say at the bottom of
Remember, if you need a helping hand, you'll find one at the end of your arm.
That's right.
Is that an original with Danny?
Well, I don't know if it is, but it's actually a very profound statement because I have an article on ministering to the disabled, but the lady here talks about waking up one morning and one of her hands was completely dead because she'd slept on it. And in order to get the arm to work, she had to lean over with the other hand and pull it out. And she said that's such an amazing picture of the church because we need to help each other, but there's an arm that they can't do that for themselves. So she gives statistics and talks about how there are 500 million people in the world with disability, which means 50% of the world have somebody with disability in their family of some sort. And yet, if you look at that statistic in the church, 50% of the church is not people with disability or people bringing in people with disability. And
we're missing
we're completely
for
missing.
ministry.
And, you know, Jesus, much of his ministry was to people with disability. And it's come to me, and sometimes we've actually got to physically bring people, but we just have to make it possible and feasible, and that the friendship class does that. It's a whole network. It provides the material. It enables people if they say, you know, oh, we have people who come to our church. We have 3 people and they sit on the back row and they make noises and everybody's embarrassed. Well, why are they stuck on the back row? I mean, they're special people, and of course you can say, well, that's being inclusive, but it actually isn't being inclusive because they feel ostracized and they're not welcomed. So even with 1 or 2, to say we have a friendship class for mentally challenged adults, people will come to it. There are so many people desperate with sons and daughters, and they don't go to church because they don't feel they fit in. So I'm pretty passionate about it.
I can tell.
Because
and there's a blessing being missed. I've experienced it.
Yeah, hugely, yeah.
Hilary, we could take the whole time, but we'd be in trouble with the men. Thank you so much. God bless you as you go.
Thanks,
Your first
Moira.
stop, next stop is New South Wales, Australia,
is,
for a women's
September.
conference this
Yeah,
month.
later
God
this
had
month.
to cut you loose and enlarge your territory.